Welcome, dear wizards and witches, to another journey into the enchanting world of Harry Potter. Tonight, we embark on a magical tale where ancient spells and deep mysteries intertwine in the heart of Hogwarts. In Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, we find a world where danger lurks beneath the surface, but where courage, friendship, and loyalty burn bright in the face of darkness. As we explore this chapter of Harry's life, let the soft whispers of enchantment draw you closer, inviting you to uncover secrets long forgotten. Allow the soothing rhythm of this story to carry you to the grand halls of Hogwarts, where shadows cast long, but the light of magic never fades. Within these enchanted walls, wonders await, whispers from the past, and friendships that glow like embers in the night. I want you, my lovely listener, to comment where you're from and what time it currently is. Let your mind drift into the comforting embrace of the magical world, where the extraordinary is found in every corner. Our story begins on a quiet summer evening at number 4, Privet Drive. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, was stuck once again in the mundane world of the Dursleys. The family treated him as an outsider, and this summer was no different. They ignored his existence, forbade him from using magic, and made sure his time was as joyless as possible. Harry longed for the comfort of Hogwarts, where he was no longer the outcast, but someone special. But on this ordinary evening, something extraordinary happened. A small, strange creature appeared in his bedroom. It was Dobby, a house elf with big, round eyes and long ears. Dobby warned Harry not to return to Hogwarts this year, for terrible things would happen there. He seemed genuinely afraid, yet when Harry questioned him, Dobby couldn't give clear answers. All he could say was, "Danger awaits Harry Potter at Hogwarts." Despite the warning, Harry refused to stay away. Hogwarts was his home. But before Dobby vanished, he caused more trouble, dropping a cake in front of Harry's aunt and uncle, getting Harry in even more trouble. The Dursleys, furious, locked him in his room, determined to keep him from returning to the magical world. But Harry wasn't left to suffer for long. One night, as he gazed sadly out the window, a bright light appeared. Ron, Weasley, and his brothers, Fred and George, had come to rescue him in their father's enchanted flying car. The sight of his friends filled Harry with relief. In a rush, they pulled the bars off Harry's window and lifted him into the flying car. Together, they soared into the night sky, leaving the suffocating world of the Dursleys far behind. As they flew through the cool, starry night, Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He was going back to where he belonged, back to Hogwarts. Soon, they arrived at the Burrow, the Weasley family's home. It was a tall, crooked house that seemed as though it was held together by magic, which it was. The cozy warmth of the house, the laughter of the Weasleys, and the smell of Mrs. Weasley's cooking greeted Harry like an old friend. For the moment, Harry felt safe and happy, unaware of the dark and dangerous year that lay ahead. After a chaotic journey via Floo Powder that left Harry temporarily lost in Knockturn Alley, he was relieved to reunite with the Weasleys in the bustling streets of Diagon Alley. The bright, colourful shops were brimming with witches and wizards preparing for the new school year. One of the key stops for the group was Flourish and Blots, the popular bookshop. There, the famous Gilderoy Lockhart was holding a book signing for his latest release. The shop was packed, with fans eagerly lining up for autographs. Lockhart, dressed in extravagant robes and flashing his signature, charming smile, instantly recognized Harry and, seizing the moment, dragging him into the spotlight. Enthusiastically, he announced that Harry would be in the public eye even more alongside him. After an awkward photo opportunity, the Weasleys and Harry were left trying to regain their composure. However, the excitement was quickly overshadowed by a tense encounter with Draco Malfoy and his father, Lucius Malfoy. Draco's sneering remarks were nothing new, but Lucius's veiled insults to the Weasleys hinted at deeper tensions. With a cold expression, Lucius slipped an unknown item into Ginny's cauldron as he criticized their second-hand supplies. The moment passed, but it left an uneasy feeling that lingered long after their shopping trip. Eventually, after arriving at the King's Cross station, the excitement of returning to Hogwarts quickly turned to panic when Harry and Ron found themselves standing alone on the platform, unable to pass through the barrier to reach the Hogwarts Express. In a moment of desperation, Ron had a bold idea: to fly his family's enchanted Ford Anglia to school. Without much hesitation, the two boys hopped into the car, and with the push of a button, they soared into the sky, leaving the train station behind. At first, the journey was exhilarating. The boys soared high above the clouds, laughing as they caught glimpses of the winding train tracks far below. The freedom of flying in the open air felt thrilling, and for a while, everything seemed to be going according to plan. However, as time passed, the excitement began to fade. The car started to sputter and struggle under the strain of the long journey. The once gleaming sky turned grey, and the towering spires of Hogwarts seemed no closer. But the real trouble began as they neared the school. The enchanted car, exhausted from the long flight, suddenly lurched downward. Harry and Ron found themselves crashing uncontrollably through the Whomping Willow, the enormous, violent tree that guarded the school grounds. The impact shook them both, and the tree retaliated by thrashing its thick branches at the car, causing even more chaos, breaking Ron Weasley's precious, pitiful wand in the process. Barely escaping the wrath of the tree, the boys tumbled out of the car, which quickly sputtered away into the forbidden forest, leaving them bruised and bewildered. Their grand entrance to Hogwarts was met not with cheers, but with stern reprimands from Professor McGonagall and a sneering lecture from Snape. However, despite the scolding, the relief of returning to school overshadowed their mishap, and soon Hogwarts awaited with all its mysteries. At the magical dinner table, where all the students of Hogwarts reunited, Ron Weasley receives a stern lecture from his dearest mother, Molly Weasley, in the form of a letter delivered by a mysterious black bird. But at this point, nothing can deter or discourage the troublemaking trio from enjoying a mystical yet haunting school year. As the new term began at Hogwarts, students found themselves intrigued by their new defense against the dark arts teacher, Gilderoy Lockhart. Famous for his best-selling books and charming smile, Lockhart was eager to showcase his knowledge. Harry, Ron, and Hermione entered his classroom, curious about what the flamboyant professor had in store. The lesson began with Lockhart boasting about his many daring adventures, much to the students' silent skepticism. With a flourish, he announced that they would experience a live demonstration of magical creatures. Pulling a cage from behind his desk, inside, bright blue Cornish pixies fluttered about, their tiny wings buzzing mischievously. "Let's see what you make of these little devils," Lockhart said confidently. With a careless flick of his wand, he released the pixies into the room. Chaos erupted immediately. The pixies zoomed around the classroom, knocking over books, pulling students' hair, and shattering ink bottles. Neville Longbottom found himself hanging from the chandelier, while other students ducked to avoid flying objects. Lockhart, with a nervous grin, attempted to regain control, but only made things worse. While muttering random gibberish words, he waves his wand around, ineffectively helping the chaotic event. The pixies ignored him, gleefully continuing their rampage. It was clear to everyone that Lockhart had no idea what he was doing. Hermione, ever practical, stepped forward. With a quick spell, she and Ron managed to round up the remaining pixies and return them to their cage. Lockhart, attempting to save face, smiled as if nothing had gone wrong. With a cheerful face, he claims that this was nothing but a little fun. But as the students left the classroom, Harry couldn't help but wonder if their new defense against the dark arts teacher was all he claimed to be. The tension had been building all morning, but it finally boiled over during Quidditch practice. As the teams left the pitch, Draco Malfoy, with his signature sneer, delivered a sharp insult to Hermione, using the slur mudblood. The word hung in the air like a bitter sting, freezing everyone in place. Ron's face flushed with anger. Without thinking, he whipped out his wand, ready to defend his friend. But his wand, still damaged from an earlier accident, was unreliable at best. Each slug was casted towards Malfoy, and before anyone could react, the spell backfired, striking Ron instead of Malfoy. Suddenly, Ron doubled over, his face pale and twisted in discomfort. To everyone's horror, he opened his mouth, and instead of words, slimy slugs began to spill out. One by one, they dropped to the ground with a soft, sickening thud. Ron gagged, clutching his stomach as more slugs forced their way out. Harry and Hermione rushed to his side, their faces a mix of concern and discomfort at the bizarre sight. The trio quickly decided to head to Hagrid's hut for help. As they made their way across the grounds, Ron continued to heave, each step marked by another slug slipping from his lips. The air, cool and crisp, felt heavy with the strange mix of embarrassment and helplessness. All the while, the words Malfoy had hurled lingered, but the focus had shifted to getting Ron to safety, away from the pitch and into the comfort of a friend's care. Once inside Hagrid's hut, the warmth of the fire and Hagrid's comforting presence helped ease the tension. Hagrid quickly found a large bucket for Ron, who continued to expel slugs in miserable waves. After some time and a few sips of tea, the hex began to wear off, and Ron, pale and exhausted, finally stopped retching slugs. Though the experience had been humiliating, the quiet of Hagrid's hut and his calming words helped restore some peace as the trio rested, trying to laugh it off. Time passes, and as Harry settled into his second year at Hogwarts, a strange sense of unease crept into his routine. It started subtly, an odd, unsettling feeling that something was watching him. The corridors, usually bustling with the laughter and chatter of students, began to feel darker and more foreboding. Yet, it wasn't until one quiet evening that Harry first heard the voice. The word "kill" was repeated in mutters. Harry froze in place, his eyes widening in shock. He glanced at Ron and Hermione, but they continued chatting, completely unaware of the voice. Confused, Harry strained to listen again. The voice seemed to slither through the air, cold and menacing, but no one else could hear it. The whispers faded as quickly as they came, leaving an eerie silence behind. Over the next few days, the whispers returned. Sometimes in the dead of night or in the midst of his lessons. Each time, they seemed to be coming from the walls themselves, as if something sinister was lurking just out of sight. With each occurrence, the whispers grew more chilling and more urgent, always repeating the same cold promise, a plea to kill. Harry's unease grew, and soon, it was clear that whatever this voice was, it wasn't just his imagination. Something dark was stirring within the ancient walls of Hogwarts, and Harry was the only one who could hear it. The festive atmosphere of Halloween had filled the Great Hall, with laughter and chatter, the long tables overflowing with food and drink. However, the joyous celebration was cut short when the first ominous sign of danger appeared. As Harry, Ron, and Hermione left the feast, heading back to their dormitory, Harry heard a chilling sound, a strange hissing that seemed to come from the walls around them. He paused, puzzled, while Ron and Hermione exchanged uneasy glances. Following the sound, the trio soon stumbled upon a horrifying scene. Mrs. Norris, the caretaker Argus Filch's beloved cat, lay stiff as a board, hanging by her tail from a torch bracket in the darkened corridor. Water dripped from the floor beneath her, a trail leading from the nearby bathroom. Written on the wall in large, menacing letters were the words, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." The discovery of Mrs. Norris in such a state shocked the students, and Filch's cries of anguish echoed through the castle as he arrived at the scene. His grief quickly turned into anger, and he immediately blamed Harry for the attack. Professors Dumbledore, McGonagall, and Snape arrived swiftly to investigate, and Filch demanded justice for his pet. However, Dumbledore quickly determined that Mrs. Norris hadn't been killed, but rather petrified, her body frozen in a state that could only be reversed with a special potion, Mandrake Restorative Draft. After the petrification of Mrs. Norris, the unsettling events at Hogwarts only grew worse for Harry. The air in the castle seemed colder, thicker, with an undercurrent of fear. Despite no further attacks for the time being, the lingering tension remained heavy, and it wasn't long before Harry, once again, found himself hearing strange whispers. It began one evening as he was walking through the castle with Ron and Hermione after a particularly dull history of magic lesson. As they strolled through the quiet, dimly lit corridors, the same eerie voice Harry had heard before crept into his ears, a faint, hissing sound that seemed to slither around him, filling the space with an unmistakable sense of malice. He paused in his tracks, eyes wide, straining to hear the voice more clearly. Harry whispers to his two best friends that the voices are back. Ron and Hermione stopped as well, looking around, confused, and questions the meaning behind the voices. Harry's eyes darted around the hallway, trying to place where the voice was coming from. He claims that the eerie voices are moving, announcing its malice, the will to kill. Ron looked deeply uneasy as Harry began walking faster, following the strange sound. He, too, was unnerved by the idea of this mysterious voice that only Harry could hear. Hermione, the logical one of the trio, tried to reason it out, but even she was shaken. They followed Harry down several flights of stairs, weaving through the castle as he led them closer and closer to the source of the voice, though it always seemed to be just out of reach. Just as quickly as it had appeared, the voice faded into nothingness, leaving behind only an eerie silence. Harry looked around, frustrated by its sudden disappearance, while Ron and Hermione exchanged worried glances. Hermione murmured that something isn't right, and this strange occurrence has to be informed to the higher authorities. But who would believe them? The whispering voice, the attacks, and the mysterious warning about the Chamber of Secrets all felt like pieces of a larger puzzle. And yet, the more they uncovered, the darker the picture seemed to become. During a transfiguration class, as the atmosphere of fear grows due to the recent attacks, Hermione raises her hand and asks Professor McGonagall to explain what the Chamber of Secrets is. Realizing the student's concern, McGonagall decides to address the matter. She begins by explaining the history of Hogwarts, focusing on the four founders: Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. McGonagall explains that Slytherin, one of the founders, disagreed with the others about admitting students from Muggle families. According to the legend, before leaving the school, Slytherin created a hidden chamber that could only be opened by his true heir. Inside, he supposedly left a monster, which, when released, would purge the school of Muggle-born students. McGonagall tells them that the chamber had been searched for many times but never found, fueling the belief that it was simply a myth. However, with the recent attacks, fear had begun to rise that the chamber had been opened again, and the heir of Slytherin might be behind it. The explanation leaves the class in tense silence as they absorb the chilling possibility that someone within the school could be responsible for the attacks. Finally, the day of the much-anticipated Quidditch match between Gryffindor and Slytherin arrived. But it was far from the usual excitement. The tension from the mysterious attacks and whispers weighed heavily on the school. But for now, the rivalry between the two houses overshadowed any unease. The sky was cloudy, with a chill in the air, and the atmosphere was electric as students packed into the stands. Harry, as Gryffindor's seeker, had his usual pre-match nerves, but was determined to secure a victory for his team. Slytherin had their own secret weapon, through Draco Malfoy. This year, he had been made Seeker for the Slytherin team. And with new Nimbus 2001 broomsticks gifted to the whole team by his father, the advantage was clearly in Slytherin's favor. Madame Hooch's whistle echoed across the pitch, and the game was off. Almost immediately, Harry felt something wasn't right. As he darted between the other players, keeping his eyes peeled for the golden snitch, a bludger zoomed past him, narrowly missing his head. Harry ducked just in time and shot a look toward Fred and George, the Gryffindor beaters, who had already gone off to the rogue ball. But something was wrong. The bludger wasn't behaving like it should. It seemed to be targeting Harry specifically, making sharp, aggressive turns to follow him wherever he flew. Harry shouted towards Fred, asking him what the bloody hell was going on, as he dodged the bludger again. Fred yelled back, claiming he has not a single clue about the bizarre actions of this foul ball. The bludger continued its relentless pursuit of Harry, forcing him to dive and swerve around the pitch to avoid being hit. The match quickly became chaotic, with players from both teams distracted by the rogue ball. Ron and Hermione, watching from the stands, exchanged worried glances. Something was definitely not right. As Harry sped past the Slytherin stands, he spotted the snitch fluttering near the ground. He narrowed his focus, diving after it, but the bludger was still on his tail. The air was filled with the cheers of the crowd, but Harry could barely hear them over the whistling wind and the pounding of his heart. In a last desperate move, Harry pulled out of his dive and raced towards the goalposts, hoping to shake the bludger by gaining speed. Harry barely managed to avoid a direct hit, but his arm wasn't so lucky. The bludger struck him hard, and he felt a sharp pain as his bones cracked. Ignoring the pain, Harry stayed on course, eyes locked on the snitch. He extended his good arm just in time to snatch the tiny golden ball out of the air, ending the match in Gryffindor's victory. The crowd roared with excitement, but Harry barely noticed as he flew to the ground, clutching his injured arm. As he landed, Lockhart rushed over, full of misguided confidence, promises to fix their arm in no time, casting another ill-judged spell. With a sudden, uncomfortable sensation, Harry's bones disappeared altogether. His arm dangled limply, boneless and useless. Lockhart shrugs off his vital mistake, as if it's of no importance, as Harry was led to the hospital wing, where the real healing would begin. In the silent hall of the hospital ward, Harry, yet again, is met with Dobby the house elf. The mysterious being warns Harry of the imminent danger present in the darkness of Hogwarts. And in the process of pleading, it is revealed that Dobby was the reason Harry and Ron couldn't pass through the barrier at the train station. But the trouble caused by the house elf doesn't end here. He is also the reason the bludger was targeting Harry with the intent of scaring Harry Potter away from the grand castles of Hogwarts. As the mysterious attacks at Hogwarts continued, and the next victim, the annoying camera boy, was petrified, fear rippled through the students. Whispers of the Chamber of Secrets grew louder, and the tension was palpable. In response to the growing anxiety of Gilderoy Lockhart, ever eager to seize the spotlight, announced the formation of a dueling club. The idea, according to Lockhart, was to teach the students how to defend themselves should they ever encounter dark magic. It was an idea that caught the attention of many, though whether it was because of Lockhart's charm or the genuine need for protection, no one could be certain. Harry, Ron, and Hermione, like many others, decided to attend the first meeting. The Great Hall had been cleared of its long dining tables, and was now filled with students eager to learn. At the front stood Lockhart, wearing his usual dazzling smile, along with Professor Snape, who looked far less enthusiastic about the whole affair. The two stood side by side on a raised platform, though it was clear Snape wasn't particularly pleased with the arrangement. Lockhart, in his flamboyant manner, introduced the session with a flourish, going on about his various exploits, most of which no one took too seriously. The first demonstration was a duel between Lockhart and Snape, a display meant to teach basic techniques. However, the demonstration ended in near disaster when Snape, with minimal effort, disarmed and humiliated Lockhart with a swift, nonchalant flick of his wand. The students' reactions were mixed. Some amused, others more than ready to get started themselves. Lockhart, to no one's surprise, brushes it off as if he meant to let Snape win. Next, the students were paired off to practice. Harry found himself standing across from Draco Malfoy, their rivalry adding an extra layer of tension to the moment. Wands were raised, and with the signal from Lockhart, the duel began. Draco, cunning as ever, casted a spell before the end of Lockhart's count, a stream of light that sends Harry flying away. But Harry Potter, the chosen one, retaliated with a spell of his own, forcing Malfoy away in an embarrassing manner. Then, something unexpected happened. With a sly smile, Draco pointed his wand and sent a serpent flying from its tip. A large, menacing snake slithered onto the platform, its hissing filling the air. The crowd gasped as it advanced towards a terrified student. Lockhart, trying to maintain his role as the hero, attempted to banish the snake, but his spell backfired, sending the creature into an even more aggressive frenzy. The moment the snake reared its head, Harry felt a strange sensation rise in his chest. Without thinking, he spoke, a low, hissing command in a language that felt foreign yet familiar. The room fell silent as the snake immediately froze, then slithered back, cowed by Harry's words. It took Harry a moment to realize what had just happened. The students were staring at him, their expressions a mixture of shock and fear. It wasn't the snake that had scared them, it was Harry. They had heard him speak in Parseltongue, the language of snakes, a rare ability famously associated with Salazar Slytherin himself. Before anything even more disastrous could happen, Professor Snape steps in, casting an enchantment that disintegrates the slithery creature. Whispers spread through the room like wildfire. Harry could feel the weight of every gaze on him. The same thought was on everyone's mind, though no one dared say it aloud. Was Harry the heir of Slytherin? The dueling club ended in chaos, and as the students left the hall, the air was thick with unease. Harry knew, deep down, that things had just gotten much worse. But it escalates even further when Harry, alone, following the strange hissing noises, stumbles upon a petrified student, just to be caught by Filch in a series of very unfortunate events. A trail of spiders can be seen underneath the body, and soon after, Harry Potter, the boy who lived, is taken by Professor McGonagall to the office of Headmaster Dumbledore. In the seemingly empty, mystical office, Harry is greeted by the Sorting Hat, who creepily taunts him with the possibility that Harry Potter may really be the heir of Slytherin. But the other elephant in the room is Fawkes, a large, vibrant, orange bird, burning itself into ashes right in front of the young wizard's eyes. Harry, stressed within the smokes, is swiftly reassured by Dumbledore that Fawkes is a phoenix, and soon it will be reborn anew. After a rather pointless discussion between the headmaster and the young wizard, Harry is given the permission to leave. The three best friends comes up with a sinister plan to unfold the truth behind the petrification attacks. The polyjuice potion, thick and bubbling, sat ominously in front of Harry, Ron, and Hermione as they prepared for one of their boldest plans yet. The potion, brewed painstakingly in the dim, echoing space of Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, was now complete. After a sneaky mission of drugging Crabbe and Goyle, stashing them in a cupboard, and acquiring some of their hair, the atmosphere in the bathroom was heavy with steam and the scent of herbs and potions, a far cry from the usual charm of Hogwarts. The stone walls seemed to close in as the three friends braced themselves for what came next. The potion had been carefully dosed. With strands of hair, Ron would become Goyle, Harry would turn into Crabbe, and Hermione had her own transformation planned. They drank the potion in silence, the thick liquid sliding down their throats with a strange, unpleasant sensation. Within moments, the potion took effect. Harry's body shifted, his limbs growing heavier as he transformed into the bulky figure of Crabbe. Ron experienced the same unsettling change, turning into Goyle. Hermione, meanwhile, slipped into a stall, keeping her transformation hidden. Once the transformations were complete, Harry and Ron, now unrecognizable, stepped out of the bathroom, moving awkwardly in their new bodies. They made their way to the Slytherin common room, the unfamiliar territory feeling cold and foreboding. When they arrived, Draco Malfoy was waiting, lounging confidently. They listened as he rambled, but instead of revealing any secrets, he only complained about his father. As time passed, Harry and Ron felt the potion beginning to wear off. Their bodies tingled with the signs of returning to normal. They quickly excused themselves and rushed back to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. There, they found Hermione, who had been transformed partially into a cat due to a mistake in her potion. With her transformation incomplete, they hurried to the hospital wing, their plan to uncover the truth falling short. But before departing from the haunted bathroom. A conversation with Moaning Myrtle was unavoidable, and during the exchange, Harry discovers a rather odd, old, thick piece of book. Picking it up from the damp floor of the restroom, the young boy couldn't help but take it along with him. The diary, hauntingly mysterious, with the name Tom Marvolo Riddle written on the cover. After a brief discussion with Ron and Hermione at the hospital wing, theorizing all the possibilities revolving around the book, Harry decides to prompt a research on the diary alone. Intrigued, Harry tried writing in the diary, hoping it would reveal something. To his amazement, the diary responded. Words began to appear on the page, as though written by an unseen hand. Through this mysterious communication, Harry learned that the diary once belonged to a student named Tom Riddle, who had attended Hogwarts 50 years earlier. Riddle explained that he had witnessed a similar string of attacks during his time at the school, eerily similar to the ones happening now. According to Riddle, the Chamber of Secrets had been opened back then too, unleashing the same terror Harry was now facing. Harry, fascinated and disturbed, continued to communicate with the diary. Riddle's words were enticing, suggesting that he knew the identity of the person responsible for the previous attacks. The idea that this old diary could hold the key to solving the mystery of the chamber captivated Harry. He was eager to know more. But what Riddle offered was far more than just an explanation. The diary wasn't simply a book, it was a window into the past. One night, as Harry wrote in the diary, he was drawn into Riddle's memories. Suddenly, he found himself transported into a scene from 50 years ago, as though he were witnessing events through Riddle's eyes. He saw a younger version of Tom Riddle, a calm, calculating student who seemed determined to solve the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets for himself. Harry watched as Riddle confronted Hagrid, who was only a student at the time, accusing him of keeping a dangerous creature. It was this confrontation that led to Hagrid's expulsion, as the creature later revealed to be Aragog. The giant spider was believed to be responsible for the attacks. When Harry returned to the present, he was left with more questions than answers. Riddle's diary had given him a glimpse into the past, but the truth still felt just out of reach. Hagrid's connection to the chamber didn't seem to make sense, yet the diary had pointed to him. The discovery of the diary only deepened the mystery, leaving Harry with a growing sense of unease about what might come next. As the attacks continued at Hogwarts, fear gripped the school even tighter. More students had been petrified, and the mystery of the Chamber of Secrets loomed larger than ever. The atmosphere was tense, with whispers of who could be behind the attacks circulating among the students. The staff was on high alert, and even those who initially dismissed the legend began to fear the truth behind it. Soon after, the trio discovers that the book has gone missing, after noticing a gigantic mess on the floors of their Gryffindor dorm rooms. Dumbfounded, there was nothing they could do but ponder. One day, after a Quidditch match, Harry and Ron are urgently brought by Professor McGonagall to the hospital wing. There, they find their dearest friend, Hermione Granger, laying on the hospital bed, petrified, as she became the latest victim of the horrifying attacks. Being a genius of a witch, Hermione left a small handheld mirror, a vital clue for the mystery behind the Chamber of Secrets. In their search for more information, Harry and Ron ventured into the Forbidden Forest, determined to seek out Hagrid. They found him before his impending trip to Azkaban, as he had been accused of involvement in the attacks. Following Hagrid's cryptic clue to follow the spiders, they navigated the dark woods, encountering a trail of giant spiders leading deeper into the forest. Eventually, they confronted Aragog, a massive acromantula. Though terrifying, Aragog denied any connection to the attacks, stating that he had never seen the creature that dwelt in the Chamber of Secrets. This revelation cleared Hagrid's name, but left Harry and Ron with more questions. As they attempted to leave the forest, they were ambushed by a swarm of aggressive spiders. The creatures advanced menacingly, and Harry and Ron had to fight their way through. Just as it seemed all hope was lost, the flying car, previously abandoned, suddenly appeared, crashing through the trees to rescue them. They climbed inside, relieved to escape the swarm and return to the safety of Hogwarts. The duo, without their dearest witch, clueless as ever, could do nothing but wait in the hospital wing, hoping for Hermione's swift return. While doing so, Harry found a piece of scrambled paper in Hermione's stone-cold hands. On that piece of wriggled paper, there lies the biggest clue in solving the mystery, once and for all. Hermione reveals that it was a basilisk, a giant snake, that has been the perpetrator in the dark halls of Hogwarts, turning students into mere petrifications. With this new knowledge, they returned to the castle, determined to act. They sought out Professor McGonagall to share what they had uncovered. Before they could, however, they overheard that Ginny Weasley had gone missing. Taken into the chamber itself, this was the final piece of the puzzle, pushing them to act. They hurried to find Lockhart, who had been tasked with investigating the chamber. To their surprise, Lockhart was preparing to flee. His confident facade had crumbled, and Harry and Ron forced him to accompany them in their search for the entrance to the chamber. They returned to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, the scene of the first attack. There, they asked Myrtle how she had died, and she revealed that she had seen glowing yellow eyes near a sink before collapsing. This confirmed that the entrance to the chamber was nearby. Harry inspected the sink, noticing a small engraving of a snake. Speaking in Parseltongue, he commanded the entrance to open. The sink shifted aside, revealing a long, dark tunnel leading deep underground. Without hesitation, Harry, Ron, and a reluctant Lockhart descended into the unknown. The tunnel grew darker and colder as Harry, Ron, and Lockhart ventured deeper into the Chamber of Secrets. The walls were damp, and every step seemed to echo ominously in the vast underground labyrinth. The tension was thick, and both Harry and Ron were on high alert, while Lockhart stumbled nervously behind them, clearly out of his element. After several twists and turns, Lockhart made a last-ditch attempt to escape his situation. Seizing Ron's broken wand, he smirked as he pointed it at Harry and Ron. "This is it, boys. I'll wipe your memories and claim the glory of this little adventure," he said, trying to sound confident. With a flourish, he cast the spell, only for it to backfire spectacularly. A loud explosion filled the tunnel as the charm ricocheted, knocking Lockhart unconscious and causing part of the ceiling to collapse. Rocks and debris tumbled down, creating a barrier between Harry and Ron. As the dust settled, Ron found himself trapped on one side of the rubble with an amnesiac Lockhart, who was now cheerfully confused, while Harry stood alone on the other side. Ron shouted, begging Harry to save his little sister, who was in dire need of help. Determined, Harry pressed forward, leaving Ron behind and venturing into the heart of the chamber. The tunnel eventually opened into a massive, cavernous room. Ancient, towering pillars lined the space, all covered in carvings of serpents. At the far end of the chamber stood a massive stone statue of Salazar Slytherin, its face eerily solemn, watching over the scene. Near the base of the statue, Harry spotted Ginny Weasley. She lay motionless on the cold stone floor, her skin pale, her breathing shallow. His heart pounded in his chest as he rushed herward. But before he could reach her, a figure began to materialize in the dim light. It was Tom Riddle, young and tall, with a cold, calculating smile. Harry stopped in his tracks as Riddle stepped closer. Riddle calmly explained that he had been manipulating Ginny. Through the diary, feeding off her fears and using her to reopen the chamber. He spoke of how Ginny had unwittingly become a pawn in his plan to cleanse Hogwarts of Muggle-born students, showing no remorse for the damage he had caused. As Riddle revealed his true nature, that he was the younger version of Lord Voldemort, Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Then, with a wave of his hand, Riddle summoned the basilisk, the enormous serpent that had been terrorizing the school. From the shadows, the snake emerged, its body impossibly long, its scales gleaming and slick. Its head rose up high, nearly touching the ceiling, and it let out a low, menacing hiss, its forked tongue flicking the air. Just when all seemed lost, a blinding flash of red appeared in the chamber. Fawkes, Dumbledore's loyal phoenix, swooped down, carrying the sorting hat in his claws. Without hesitation, Fawkes attacked the basilisk, gouging its eyes with his sharp talons, blinding the creature and robbing it of its most lethal weapon, its deadly gaze. The serpent thrashed wildly, now unable to see, but still just as dangerous. After a hide-and-seek with the snake, and successfully tricking it in the tunnels, Harry returned to Ginny. The sorting hat landed at Harry's feet. Desperate and filled with adrenaline, Harry manifested, and out of it fell the sword of Gryffindor, shimmering in the faint light of the chamber. Armed with the sword, Harry prepared himself for the battle of his life as the basilisk returns, its blood boiling. The basilisk lunged, and Harry narrowly dodged its massive body. It hissed and coiled, blindly lashing out at the sound of his footsteps. Every movement sent the creature's heavy, scaly body crashing into the pillars, causing dust and debris to rain down from above. Harry knew he couldn't outlast the serpent in a prolonged fight. He needed to end it quickly. Summoning all his courage, Harry made a final desperate move. Climbing on the statue on Salazar Slytherin, and after a fierce battle, the fight ends with Harry plunging the sword deep into the roof of the basilisk's mouth as it lunged toward him. The blade pierced through, and the creature let out a bone-chilling scream before collapsing to the ground, its immense body coiling and thrashing in its death throes. But as Harry stood victorious, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his arm. Looking down, he saw a basilisk fang had embedded itself in his arm during the final strike. The venom was already spreading. His vision blurred, and he stumbled, knowing he had only moments left. With fading strength and Tom taunting, Harry spotted Tom Riddle's diary lying near Ginny. He remembered Dumbledore's words about basilisk venom being deadly, but also incredibly destructive. Mustering all the strength he had left, he pulled the fang from his arm and, in one swift motion, stabbed it into the diary. A hissing sound filled the air as ink bled from the pages, and Tom Riddle's form began to flicker and fade. He let out a scream of rage as the diary was destroyed, and moments later, he vanished completely. The connection between him and Ginny finally broken. Harry, weakened and near collapse, stumbled over to Ginny's side. Just as he reached her, Fawkes returned, landing softly beside him. The phoenix shed tears onto Harry's wound, and as they trickled down his arm, the burning pain of the venom faded. Slowly, the poison was neutralized, and Harry's strength began to return. Carefully, Harry helps Ginny sit up, her eyes fluttering open as she regains consciousness. Though weak and disoriented, the color slowly returned to her cheeks. Supporting her, Harry guided her back through the chamber, navigating the dark corridors. They reached the collapsed tunnel where Ron and Professor Lockhart had been trapped. Hearing Ron's muffled, frantic voice, they cleared a small gap in the rubble, reuniting with a thoroughly confused and memoryless Lockhart. With the help of Fawkes, the group made their way out of the chamber and back to the castle. Upon emerging, they were met by Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. Ginny was embraced by her parents, and the relief in the air was palpable. Dumbledore spoke with Harry privately, commending him for his bravery and explaining the significance of his actions. Harry also revealed that it was Lucius Malfoy who had slipped the diary into Ginny's possession. Shortly after, Lucius Malfoy stormed into Dumbledore's office, enraged by his return as headmaster. After a tense exchange, Harry handed Lucius the diary wrapped in his own sock. Without realizing it, Lucius passed the sock to Dobby, who was freed as a result. The encounter left Lucius furious, but Dobby, now free, protected Harry from Malfoy's anger. Meanwhile, the Mandrake potion had been administered, and the students who had been petrified were now fully healed. The sense of peace returning to the school was finally complete, as life at Hogwarts resumed its normal course, with the shadow of the Chamber of Secrets fading into memory. The atmosphere at Hogwarts shifted from one of fear to quiet celebration. As the sunlight streamed through the windows, it cast a warm glow over the Great Hall, where a feast had been prepared in honor of the students' recovery and Harry's heroic efforts. Laughter once again filled the castle, and for the first time in what felt like an age, a sense of normalcy returned. In those moments, Hogwarts felt like home again, a place of wonder and camaraderie, where the terrors of the past few weeks slowly faded into distant memories. The Chamber of Secrets was now sealed, its horrors vanquished, and with the arrival of summer, the promise of new adventures awaited. As the sun set over the castle, casting long shadows across the grounds, peace had finally returned to Hogwarts. The trials and dangers of the past weeks seemed to dissolve, leaving behind only the warmth of friendship and the comfort of a home restored. In the stillness of the evening, the whispers of magic faded into the night, and the stars twinkled above like watchful guardians over the enchanted world below. And so, dear listener, as the story comes to a close, let the soft embrace of sleep take you. Drift off, knowing that in this magical world, courage always prevails, and light shines even in the darkest of times. Good night, my lovely wizards and witches.